Ezekiel Marsh stood at the altar, next to the heaviest woman he'd ever seen, knowing he'd just traded his dignity for a single cow. But what dark secret was about to unfold on their wedding night? The drought had been merciless. 3 months without rain, and Ezekiel's cattle had withered to skin and bone. Before dying one by one, his ranch, once proud with 100 head of cattle, now held nothing but cracked earth and broken dreams. The bank notice, still crumpled in his pocket, reminded him he had 30 days before losing everything his father had built. That's when Cornelius Slade made his offer. "Marry my daughter Adelaide, and I'll give you the finest breeding cow in the territory," Slade said, his gold teeth glinting in the saloon's dim light. "She's not much to look at, but she's got a good heart, and you need cattle more than you need pride. Hold on. What kind of man trades his future for a cow? And what's Adelaide hiding that could change everything? Stay tuned with Narrative Sphere to find out." Ezekiel stared into his empty whiskey glass, feeling the eyes of every man in the saloon burning into his back. They all knew his situation. They all knew he was desperate enough to consider anything. "She's willing?" Ezekiel asked quietly. "She's 26 and unmarried. She knows her options." Slade's laugh was cruel. "Besides, what choice do either of you have now?" Standing in the small wooden church, Ezekiel glanced sideways at Adelaide. She wore a simple brown dress that strained at the seams. Her dark hair pulled back severely. Her face was round and soft, but her eyes held something he couldn't quite read. Not shame, not resignation, something sharper. The preacher's words blurred together as Ezekiel thought about the cow waiting in Slade's barn. A Holstein, fat and healthy, worth more than everything Ezekiel owned combined. It would be the foundation for rebuilding his herd, the difference between survival and losing the land that bore his family name. "I do," Adelaide said firmly when prompted, her voice stronger than Ezekiel expected. His own voice caught in his throat. "I do." The ring was too small for Adelaide's finger, but she forced it on anyway. When the preacher declared them married, she looked directly at Ezekiel for the first time all day. That strange look in her eyes was still there, but now it seemed almost amused. But wait, when Adelaide locks the bedroom door that night, what shocking truth will Ezekiel uncover? Keep watching Narrative Sphere to unravel this twisted tale. The reception was small and awkward. Slade's hired hands ate quickly and left. The few neighbors who attended whispered among themselves, stealing glances at the unlikely couple. Ezekiel mechanically accepted congratulations that felt more like condolences. As evening approached, Adelaide quietly gathered her few belongings. She had only a single worn carpet bag and a leather-bound book she clutched tightly. When it was time to leave for Ezekiel's ranch, she climbed onto the wagon without assistance, her weight making the springs groan. The ride to his ranch was silent, except for the creak of wheels and the distant howl of coyotes. Ezekiel kept thinking about the cow, about the chance to start over, about the price he'd just paid for survival. But when they reached his small cabin, and Adelaide walked straight to the bedroom, something in her posture changed. She moved with purpose, not resignation. That's when she turned the key in the lock, trapping them both inside. And Ezekiel realized this night would be nothing like he'd imagined. Ezekiel stared at the locked door, his hand frozen on the handle. The small bedroom felt like a trap now, with Adelaide standing between him and the only exit. The single candle on the nightstand cast dancing shadows across her face, making her expression unreadable. "What are you doing?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Adelaide didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the window and pulled the curtain shut. blocking out the moonlight. When she turned back to face him, something in her posture had shifted completely. The submissive woman from the church was gone. "Sit down," she said firmly. Ezekiel felt a chill run down his spine. "Adelaide, unlock that door right now." "My name isn't Adelaide." She opened her carpet bag and pulled out a thick roll of papers. "And I'm not Cornelia Slade's daughter." The words hit Ezekiel like a physical blow. He sank onto the bed's edge, staring at her. "What?" "My real name is Catherine Walsh. Adelaide Quinn died of fever 2 years ago." She unrolled the papers on the small table. Slade needed someone to take her place for this marriage. Someone desperate enough to play the part. Ezekiel's mind raced. "That's impossible. Why would you?" "Because Slade owes me something far more valuable than a cow." Catherine's voice was ice cold. "My father owned the water rights to Creek Canyon. Slade murdered him for them 3 years ago. Made it look like a riding accident." The room seemed to spin around Ezekiel. "You're lying. I have the proof right here." She tapped the papers. "Witnesses who saw Slade tamper with my father's saddle. Bank records showing he forged the water rights transfer. Everything I need to destroy him." Ezekiel stood up slowly, his legs unsteady. "Then why marry me? Why this charade?" "Because Slade is paranoid. He keeps armed guards around him constantly. Never goes anywhere alone." Catherine moved closer, her eyes intense. "But tonight, thinking his problem daughter is safely married off, he'll be celebrating at Murphy's saloon. Drinking, vulnerable. Problem daughter." Adelaide was going to expose him. She found out about my father's murder and threatened to go to the territorial marshal. Catherine's voice softened slightly. "Slade had her poisoned. Made it look like fever." Ezekiel felt sick. "And you think I'm going to help you kill him? I don't need your help killing him." Catherine reached into her carpet bag again and pulled out a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. "I need your help making sure he pays for what he's my." "Done." The sight of the vial made Ezekiel's blood run cold. "Catherine, whatever you're planning." "Justice, Ezekiel. I'm planning justice." She tucked the vial into her dress pocket. "Slade murdered 2 people and stole everything my family owned. Tonight, he pays." Ezekiel moved toward the door again. "I won't be part of this madness." "You already are." Catherine smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You're married to his daughter. Remember, when they find his body tomorrow morning, you'll be the first person they suspect. After all, everyone knows how desperate you were." The trap was perfect, and Ezekiel finally understood why Catherine had looked so amused during the ceremony. She hadn't been marrying him, she'd been framing him. But what she didn't know was that Ezekiel had secrets of his own. And when she unlocked that door to leave for Slade's murder, she was going to discover that her perfect plan had one fatal flaw. Ezekiel watched Catherine check the small vial one more time, her fingers steady. Despite the magnitude of what she was planning, she had no idea that he'd been expecting this moment for months. Not this exact scenario, but something like it. Something that would finally give him the chance to settle his own score with Cornelia Slade. "You're making a mistake," Ezekiel said quietly. "The only mistake I made was trusting that you'd understand." Catherine moved toward the door, key in hand. "Stay here. When they come asking questions tomorrow, tell them your wife went to visit her father one last time before starting her new life." "Catherine, wait." Ezekiel's voice was calm, almost gentle. "Before you go, there's something you should know about that vial." She froze, her hand on the key. "What?" "It's not poison." Ezekiel sat back down on the bed, suddenly looking more relaxed than he had all evening. "It's colored water with a bit of salt." The color drained from Catherine's face. That's impossible. I bought it from the medicine man in Tombstone. He guaranteed it would kill a man in minutes. The medicine man works for me. Ezekiel smiled for the first time since the ceremony. Has for 6 months now. Ever since I started tracking down everyone who wanted Slade dead. Catherine's hand trembled as she pulled the vial from her pocket, staring at it in disbelief. You've been watching me. You're not the only one Slade destroyed, Catherine. The difference is, I've been patient. I've been planning. Ezekiel stood up slowly. That cow he gave me as your dowry. It belonged to my family before the drought. Slade bought my debt from the bank and foreclosed early, then had his men steal my cattle in the night. Then why stop me? Why not let me kill him? Because hanging him would be too quick. Ezekiel walked to the window and looked out toward town. I want him to lose everything slowly, the way he made us lose everything. His land, his cattle, his reputation. I want him to die a broken man. Catherine clutched the useless vial, her perfect plan crumbling around her. The papers, the witnesses, they're real. I know. I've been collecting evidence against Slade. For months. Your father's murder was just one of many crimes. Ezekiel turned back to her. The territorial marshal is already on his way. Should arrive tomorrow morning with federal warrants. You used me, Catherine whispered. We used each other. The difference is, my plan doesn't end with either of us swinging from a rope. Ezekiel unlocked the door. Slade's reign ends tomorrow, but it ends legally. Catherine sank into the chair, the weight of her failed revenge crushing down on her. But as Ezekiel opened the door, the sound of horses approaching fast made them both freeze. They're coming for us, Catherine breathed. Ezekiel's confidence vanished as he recognized the riders. Slade's men, armed and riding hard toward the cabin. Someone had betrayed them both. And now their carefully laid plans meant nothing. Tonight wasn't going to end with justice or revenge. Tonight was going to end with blood. The thunder of hooves grew louder as Ezekiel blew out the candle, plunging the bedroom into darkness. Through the window, he could see torches bobbing in the distance. At least 6 riders coming fast. Catherine grabbed his arm, her breath shallow with panic. How did they know? She whispered. Ezekiel's mind raced through the possibilities. Someone had told Slade about Catherine's real identity, about the fake marriage, about everything. But who? The preacher. Ezekiel breathed. Slade owns him. Catherine's grip tightened. What do we do? The root cellar. It's hidden under the kitchen floorboards. Ezekiel grabbed his rifle from beside the bed. You take the evidence and hide. No matter what happens, don't come out until morning. What about you? I'm gonna give them what they came for. Ezekiel checked his rifle, knowing he had 6 shots against 6 men. Not good odds, but he'd faced worse during the war. They want to fight, they'll get one. Catherine clutched the papers to her chest. Ezekiel, those men will kill you. Maybe, but if I run now, Slade wins everything. Your father stays dead and unavenged. My family's land stays stolen. Adelaide's murder goes unpunished. He looked at her in the darkness. I won't let that happen. The horses were close enough now that they could hear Slade's voice shouting orders. Catherine kissed Ezekiel's cheek quickly, then slipped out of the bedroom toward the kitchen. Ezekiel waited until he heard the cellar door close, before moving to the front window. Slade sat on his horse in the yard, torch held high, his face twisted with rage. 5 armed men flanked him, rifles ready. In the flickering light, Ezekiel could see that one of them was the territorial marshal himself, the man who was supposed to arrest Slade tomorrow morning. Ezekiel Marsh, Slade's voice boomed across the yard. I know what you've been planning. Come out now, and we might let you live long enough to stand trial. Ezekiel stepped onto his porch, rifle lowered but ready. Evening, Cornelius. Congratulations on the wedding. Your daughter's quite something. Slade's laugh was ugly. That fat cow isn't my daughter, and you know it. Where's Catherine Walsh? Never heard of her. Ezekiel kept his voice steady. My wife Adelaide went to bed early. Long day, you understand. Stop playing games. The marshal spurred his horse forward, badge glinting in the torchlight. We know Catherine Walsh killed the real Adelaide Quinn 2 years ago. We know she's been planning to murder Mr. Slade, and we know you've been helping her. The betrayal hit Ezekiel like a physical blow. The marshal wasn't coming to arrest Slade. He was working with him. Every piece of evidence Ezekiel had gathered, every witness he'd found, every careful plan he'd made over the past 6 months had been reported directly to the man he was trying to destroy. You're all on his payroll, Ezekiel said quietly. Smart man. Slade dismounted, pulling his own rifle. Did you really think you could outsmart me? I've owned this territory for 20 years. I know about every move before it's made. But as Slade stepped closer, confident in his victory, he made the same mistake he'd made with Catherine's father. He underestimated the desperation of a man with nothing left to lose. Ezekiel raised his rifle as Slade approached, but he wasn't aiming at the man who destroyed his life. Instead, he pointed the barrel directly at the torch in Slade's hand. One shot, and the yard would plunge into darkness, giving him the advantage he needed. You made one mistake, Cornelius, Ezekiel said, finger on the trigger. What's that? You assumed I was planning to fight fair. Ezekiel fired, and the torch exploded in a shower of sparks. The burning oil splattered across Slade's shirt, sending him stumbling backward, beating at the flames. In the chaos and darkness, Ezekiel dove behind the water trough. The corrupt marshal shouted orders, but before anyone could react, the thunder of approaching horses filled the air. Different horses, federal horses. The real territorial marshal arrived with 6 federal deputies, their badges gleaming in the moonlight. Drop your weapons, Marshal Hayes commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. This is a federal investigation. The corrupt Marshal Warren tried to run, but Catherine stepped out of the cabin, holding a lantern and a thick bundle of papers she'd never hidden in the cellar. Instead, she'd been signaling the real federal agents with the lantern from the kitchen window. Marshal Hayes, Catherine called out clearly, I have documented evidence of murder, theft, and corruption involving Cornelius Slade and Marshal Warren. Slade's men threw down their rifles immediately, realizing they'd been caught in a federal trap. The corrupt Marshal Warren reached for his gun, but Ezekiel was faster. His shot hit Warren's hand, sending the weapon flying into the darkness. Catherine Walsh has been working with federal investigators for 3 months, Marshal Hayes announced as his deputies surrounded Slade's men. Every conversation, every bribe, every threat has been documented. Slade, still smoldering from the burning oil, looked between Catherine and Ezekiel with dawning horror. This was all planned. The marriage was real, Catherine said, walking to stand beside Ezekiel. But Adelaide Quinn was my sister, not Slade's daughter. When she discovered his crimes and threatened to expose him, he had her poisoned. I've been gathering evidence ever since. Ezekiel stared at her. Your sister. Adelaide was trying to help our family retain the water rights when she uncovered Slade's forgeries. She died protecting people she'd never met. Catherine's voice was steady, but tears ran down her cheeks. Tonight was justice for her, for your father, for everyone he destroyed. Marshal Hayes slapped shackles on Slade's wrists. Cornelius Slade, you're under arrest for murder, fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Marshal Warren, you're under arrest for corruption and conspiracy to commit murder. As the federal deputies led the prisoners away, Ezekiel and Catherine stood together in the yard. The ranch was still failing. The drought wasn't over, and they were still married to each other under false pretenses. But Slade's reign of terror was finished. What happens now? Ezekiel asked. Catherine smiled. The first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Now we rebuild together, the way Adelaide wanted. Ezekiel looked at the woman who'd married him for revenge and discovered something better. Sometimes, the greatest treasures come from the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this gripping tale, click the video on your screen now to watch. Another unforgettable story where destiny and courage collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe to Narrative Sphere and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to Narrative Sphere.